Hello, my name is Angie. Welcome to my channel. This is my very first video, so hopefully you can all learn something by it and even gain some inspiration at the end of it. So without further ado, let's get started on this very important subject that is cat loving culture in our modern society. Nowadays, it has become extremely common to love cats, let it be their judging stares, their silly behaviors, or simply having a cuddle buddy that we refuse to bother even if we can feel our legs. As I've grown older, I've been able to observe through friends, family, and acquaintances how cats have become the default pet or even the most desired by those who didn't have one. For example, me right now, I currently have two cats. My friend has a cat, my other friend has a cat, my cousin has a cat, my other cousin has a cat. Basically, everyone I know has a cat nowadays. And now, if we take a look at the internet, cat memes have been massive since the beginning of the online era. Starting from random videos of cats, then we had Grumpy Cat, Nyan Cat, and even now the. So it's clear that it's something that's still evolving. People sharing their cats and funny videos through hashtags like cats of TikTok, cats of Tumblr. Everything was just related to it. We can even see the influence some people have had in this subject, like Dan and Phil, because when they started their series Phil is Not on Fire, they used to draw cat whiskers on their faces, and then they released merch about it. Then they had a hiatus, and when they came back, they released like another batch of cat related merch, including a cat calendar and whatever this is. I don't even know. Going back a bit in history, cats were initially seen as helpers to humans by getting rid of pests. In ancient Egypt, they were seen to be protectors as well as hunters, and also represented fertility, justice, and power, even having a Egyptian goddess named Bastet that had the head of a cat. Keeping this same belief that cats were helpers, Romans and Greeks also used cats to control vermin populations, despite them not being the animal of choice. This changed when it became obvious that cats just had a superior way of catching mice, and so their use in protecting food stores began. Romans also allowed cats to be in their forts, not only to protect their food, but also to protect their armors, because rats kept chewing on them because they were made out of leather. So this was the way that they became great companions to Romans, and they could also take them home. However, all this respect did not make it to the Middle Ages in Europe. Since religious dogma intervened, cats were now portrayed as instruments of the devil and were thought to accompany witches and heretics, which even now we can still see that represented in the media that we consume. During pre-Victorian England, owning a pet wasn't seen as a good thing, given that dogs and cats were expected to be working animals and were not considered to be part of the family. However, in the late 18th and early 19th centuries, everything began to change. Having a pet was started to be seen as adding value to the family, as well as a way to teach children about responsibilities. Dogs were the first to go from working animals to beloved family members. Cats, however, did not have the same luck, given that they were still largely seen as evil and associated with witches. But this, fortunately, began to change in the late 19th century. Harrison Weir was the first person to organize a cat show in England back in 1871. He stated that cats were possibly the most perfect and certainly the most domestic. At first, he didn't have any particular love for cats, but once he experienced them as pets, he claimed they were an object of increasing interest, admiration, and cultured beauty. There was another person that really influenced the way people looked at cats back then, so now that is our next subject. Louis Wain's personal life was scarred by tragedy, but the way that his legacy now lives on is truly inspiring. He was a freelance artist for trade journals and newspapers. He used to make his living by producing engravings that would be published in the Illustrated London News back when they couldn't reproduce photographs. At the age of 23, he married Emily Richardson. However, soon after, she was diagnosed with terminal breast cancer. They also had a family cat named Peter, and he used to make drawings of the cat to make her smile and just make the struggle at least bearable. These drawings were not for publication. However, when the editor of the Illustrated London News saw them, he offered Louis Wain to print some of his art, And a few days after Emily Richardson died, A Kitten's Christmas Party, which is a painting with over 150 cats, was then published in the newspaper. His art became loved very quickly, given that people enjoyed watching cats doing human activities, and these were often created as Louis Wain sat in public spaces and sketched the people around him, but as cats. The most common way for his art to be known was through Christmas annuals and postcards, and that is how he gained the nickname of the man who drew cats. In Rodney Dale's 1968 biography of Louis Wain, titled The Man Who Drew Cats, he wrote that the attitude of the general public towards cats and their feelings for them was greatly affected. This is all thanks to Louis Wain's art, and we can even assume is because he humanized cats by making them do human activities, which were what people could relate to. Unfortunately, Louis Wain's mental health got worse. In June of 1924, at the age of 63, he was certified insane and he was taken to the paupers ward at the hospital in Tooting, South London. He was discovered there a year later by a journalist, and this led to a high profile campaign to find him better care. Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald was among the people that backed this campaign, and he even went as far as to arrange a small civilist pension for Louis Wain's sisters to recognize their brother's services to art. H.G. Wells also took to the radio in support of Louis Wain, and before long, enough money had been raised to move him to the better facility that was Bethlehem Hospital. After that, he drew this picture, I Am Happy Because Everyone Loves Me, and I personally believe it's a testament to all the support that he got, not only from his family, but also his peers, the general public. It became obvious how supported he was and how loved he was, all due to his paintings. And it's just, you can feel the joy radiating from the drawing, which is one of my favorite ones. During his stay at the hospital, he continued to do what he loved. He was supported and given everything he needed to continue drawing, and all of these can be found in Bethlehem Museum of the Mind. On this website, we have the opportunity to see the gallery, in which there are dozens of artists that have been part of the hospital throughout its existence. We can access 56 artworks by Louis Wain in this gallery, as well as read a bit of his life history, and also buy some merchandise, although this is exclusive for the United Kingdom. We can even visit a 360 digital museum tour where we can then find a painting on a mirror made by Louis Wain in 1928 titled Brown and White Cats with Plum Pudding. To wrap it up about Louis Wain, I first found out about him last year when I watched the movie The Electrical Life of Louis Wain, starred by Benedict Cumberbatch. Admittedly, I did watch that movie for Benedict, but I ended up falling in love with the artistry and the way that Louis Wain brought his paintings to life. And my first thought is that this was through a movie. So one can only imagine how it was back then to experience them as they were getting made, seeing them for the first time. And I think one thing also that just made me feel so happy or just moved me was the fact that he started his whole journey of art by trying to make his sick wife happy, by trying to make Emily Richardson happy. And I believe that that spark, that love, can be found in each cat that he drew. Not only about Peter, their family cat, but any other cat, that essence can still be found in each one of them. And I believe that's what makes everything so beautiful. And that's something that started as an act of pure love became his legacy. Moving on to another section, we have Laurel Burch and her fantastic felines. Line by line, color by color, whisker by whisker is what Laurel had to say about the way that she would begin to draw her also very colorful cats. The first time a cat appeared on my drawing paper, I was quite surprised. I did not own a cat, had never owned a cat, and did not even dream of owning a cat. Why then did this brightly colored, free spirit creature creep into my imagination, she said. Laurel Burch was born with a rare disease called osteopetrosis that causes extremely fragile bones that are prone to fracturing or splintering during normal activities. She was diagnosed when she was 8 and continued to struggle with it throughout her life. However, this never stopped her from following her dreams whilst also raising 2 children. She continued creating despite all her struggles. She still did what she loved, and she always focused on the brighter side. Going back to her fantastic felines, she began painting more and more of them, making her believe that they were a lesson about the lighter side of beings. This made her realize that despite her hardships, she could still find something fun to do, something to bring out the whimsical side of life. In her words, a reminder to play. Painting her cat family inspired her and set her creativity wild, and we can especially see this in the way that we can feel the warmth and the joy radiating out of her paintings, in the same way that we could feel it from Louis Wain's art. Lastly, in her words, each fantastic feline has a life of its own, to lift spirits, warm hearts, share dreams, and kindle friendships. These are the things that inspire me to create art, and these are the things my feline ambassadors can express. Laurel Burch Studios is a website where you can find all sorts of items with her own designs. With sections that go from jewelry to pet accessories, you can find almost anything with the beautiful artistry of Laurel Burch immortalized in them. You can also find not only cat designs, but also dogs and horses. Now, I want to show you something that I am extremely excited about, which is this, a Laurel Burch bag. Honestly, I've been looking for a crossbody bag since forever, and I could never find one that I genuinely liked. But when I saw this one, I fell in love with it. The colors are so vibrant. This is the back of it, and it's just so beautiful. And I think it's all part of that same artistry that I really like. I have a cat there. So hopefully this inspires you to get your own items from Laurel Burch's brand so that we can keep her legacy alive. And also is 50 years of Laurel Burch. So yeah, you can also look in her page, in her website. You can access a section that tells you more about her life story if you want to know more. To wrap this up, hopefully we realize the importance of cats in our current culture. Let it be as a way of lighthearted entertainment or inspiring stories. Despite being considered as less attractive than dogs, it doesn't change the fact that cats can be great companions. They're beautiful animals and they are a great source of joy and also inspiration. Following up on that, we have multiple examples, Laurel Burch and Louis Wain aside, that cats just bring out the best in people's creativity, making them the face of beautiful stories and art in many different fields, let it be video games, cartoons, movies, just everything. The way that I got inspiration for this whole thing was actually quite curious. Like I mentioned, I watched The Electrical Life of Louis Wain last year, and from that point onwards, it was just something that lingered in my head, as well as some of his paintings. And then when I was scrolling through Amazon and I found the Laurel Burch bag, it reminded me of Louis Wain, and I couldn't help but love it immediately. So I did a little research on Laurel Burch, and it was when I realized that she also made drawings of funky cats. So I started wondering if there was possibly a link between cats and that specific form of expression. Creativity can be found in times of need, and that is something that I want to touch on before we finish up or before it gets dark outside. How can we turn a sorrowful moment into a form of artistic expression? I feel like we have that example very clearly with Louis Wynn and Emily Richardson. When she began struggling, he turned into his artistic side to try and make her life a little easier, at least the last few moments she had. When he was in the hospital, he continued painting. When he was struggling, he was still creating something. We also have Laurel Burch's example. Despite her diagnosis and the fact that she continued to struggle more as she grew older, she never stopped going. She continued creating and letting her artistry take her to where she wanted to be. And at the end of the day, we can see that their hardships only motivated them to continue creating. And that is something that we can take away from this. Take your battles, and instead of letting them lead you to war, let them become something. Create. I am not saying to completely ignore what you're going through, but having a healthy way to cope with it, let it be through the magic of art, can give you more opportunities and take you to places where you can actually thrive. And absolutely anything can be your inspiration. And in this case, it's cats. As Laurel Burch stated, when she began painting cats, it was like her way to start seeing the lighter side despite her hardships. And that is something that we can also apply to ourselves. And we can see that cats are the inspiration for many different projects, including this video. So thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you learned something from it. Hopefully it gave you some motivation to do something else. So thank you so much, and I will be seeing you in the next video. Goodbye.